They all laughed when my grandmother left me nothing but a small wooden box. They called it useless, pitiful, proof that I didn't matter. But they had no idea. The truth inside that box would expose their greed, destroy their lies, and save me in the end. The church smelled faintly of lilies and old wood, the kind of scent that clung to grief. My grandmother's coffin rested at the front, draped in white roses, while whispers drifted through the pews like restless ghosts. She was a remarkable woman, the pastor intoned, his voice steady, though it barely cut through the sound of my relatives bickering in the back rows. Even here, at her funeral, their eyes weren't on the coffin. They were on the inheritance. Aunt Marianne dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief, but her glance kept darting toward Uncle Charles, who sat stiff and smug in his suit. My cousins whispered behind manicured hands, their gazes sliding to me with a pity that stung more than their words ever could. I sat quietly in the second row, hands clasped tightly in my lap. Grandmother had been more than a matriarch. She had been my anchor. She taught me patience when the world mocked me, strength when my own parents faltered, and love when no one else seemed capable of giving it freely. Losing her felt like losing the last steady piece of my world. After the service, the family gathered at the old Davenport mansion for the will reading. The house had always been a monument of her resilience. Polished wood floors, chandeliers that sparkled even when dusty, portraits of ancestors who seemed to glare at us from gilded frames. The lawyer, a thin man with silver glasses, sat at the head of the mahogany dining table. My relatives leaned forward eagerly, like vultures circling prey. As per Mrs. Davenport's wishes, he began, her estate will be divided accordingly. Gasps, sighs, and satisfied smiles followed as he listed off properties, jewels, and bank accounts. Uncle Charles beamed when he was named executor of several businesses. Marianne nearly fainted when she learned of the diamond necklace passed into her possession. Then the lawyer's gaze shifted to me. His tone softened. And to her granddaughter. He paused, glancing at me over the rims of his glasses. She leaves this. From beneath the table, he produced a small, worn wooden box. It was no bigger than a jewelry case, plain except for the delicate carvings on its surface, tiny vines etched into the grain. The lock glinted faintly in the chandelier's light. A murmur rippled through the room. My cousins smirked. That's it, one of them whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear. She got the scraps, another said with a laugh. Marianne clucked her tongue in mock sympathy. Oh, darling, don't be upset. She always had peculiar affections. Heat crawled up my neck, but I kept my hand steady as I accepted the box. It was heavier than it looked, its weight both real and symbolic. My grandmother's last gift. The lawyer closed his folder. That concludes the reading. The family dispersed, buzzing with triumph and gossip, leaving me clutching the box like a lifeline. They thought it was worthless. They thought she had left me nothing. But as I traced the carved vines with my fingertips, I knew better. My grandmother never gave anything without purpose. And this box, this strange, secret box, was no exception. Would you have felt humiliated if you were left a worthless box while others got fortunes? The Davenport dining room emptied slowly, the clatter of heels against marble echoing as my relatives paraded out with their new fortunes. Laughter drifted back toward me like smoke from a fire I was not invited to share. I lingered at the long table, staring down at the box in my lap. Its carving seemed deeper now, almost alive beneath my fingertips. Poor thing. The voice snapped me back. My cousin Evelyn stood at the door, pearls gleaming against her neck. She leaned on the frame, eyes sweeping over me with a mixture of pity and delight. All she gave you was that? She let out a laugh, sharp and brittle. I suppose it makes sense. You were always her little charity case. My jaw tightened. I wanted to tell her that grandmother had raised me when no one else had cared, that her love was worth more than all their jewels. But Evelyn wouldn't understand. None of them would. Uncle Charles appeared behind her, his bulk filling the doorway. He smirked, eyes narrowing at the box. Don't waste your time, girl. It's just a trinket. Sentimental, maybe. Nothing more. The others joined in. Snickers, whispers, a chorus of condescension. A toy box, perhaps. Maybe it's empty. Or worse, maybe it's just her way of telling you she never trusted you with anything valuable. Their laughter filled the hall until it became unbearable. I clutched the box tighter, rising from the table. I don't need your pity, I said, my voice low but steady. For a moment, silence fell. Charles arched an eyebrow. Careful, child. Pride doesn't fill pockets. I pushed past them, my heart hammering. Their laughter followed me down the corridor, echoing against the walls like cruel music. In the quiet of my grandmother's old study, I finally allowed myself to breathe. The room smelled of cedar and old paper, her scent still lingering in the curtains and the worn leather chair. I placed the box on the desk, studying it under the lamplight. The carvings were intricate, vines twisting into patterns that almost looked like letters, though I couldn't decipher them. The lock was small but strong, no key in sight. I tried to shake it gently, listening for a rattle inside. Nothing. Whatever secrets it held, they were sealed tight. My grandmother's words from months ago whispered in my mind. Not every gift shines on the surface. Some treasures take time to reveal themselves. I leaned back in the chair, exhaustion heavy in my bones. Downstairs, laughter and clinking glasses told me the others were already celebrating their new wealth. Let them. I ran my fingers across the box once more, whispering to myself, you wouldn't have left me nothing. The vines seemed to shimmer faintly in the lamplight, as though the box itself was listening. I didn't know what it held. Not yet. But deep down, I knew one thing for certain. When the truth inside was revealed, the ones who mocked me today would regret ever laughing. Do you think the relatives are mocking her because they're greedy or because they're afraid? That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their mocking faces, their laughter echoing like a chorus of ghosts. But louder still was the memory of my grandmother's voice, soft, patient, deliberate. Some treasures take time to reveal themselves. I lit the small desk lamp in her study and pulled open the drawers one by one. The room was still thick with her presence, faded stationery, a half-empty bottle of lavender perfume, her favorite fountain pen with the nib slightly bent from years of use. I wasn't sure what I was searching for, maybe a key, maybe a note, but something told me she had left a trail. In the bottom drawer, beneath stacks of old letters, I found a leather-bound notebook, The cover was worn, the edges frayed, but her familiar handwriting danced across the first page, for the one who understands. My breath caught. Flipping through the pages, I found sketches of vines, nearly identical to the carvings on the wooden box. She had drawn them repeatedly, as if they held meaning beyond decoration. Beneath one sketch, she had scribbled, "The roots hide deeper truths." My pulse quickened. Turning another page, I found a small pressed flower taped neatly, its petals brittle with age. Beside it, she had written a single line. "When they reach for gold, remember the seed." The words made little sense, yet I felt certain they were connected to the box. I pulled it closer under the lamplight. Tracing the carved vines again, I noticed for the first time how the lines intersected at one point near the base. It looked almost like a tiny emblem, a seed, or was it a lock disguised within the pattern? Before I could test the idea, a knock rattled the study door. Still sulking? Evelyn's voice dripped with mock sweetness. Without waiting for an answer, she slipped inside, a glass of wine in hand. "I thought I'd find you here clutching that silly thing." I slid the notebook half closed, guarding it with my hand. She smirked. "Honestly, cousin, you should just accept it. You weren't important enough to her. Be grateful she left you anything at all." Anger simmered, but I forced a calm smile. "Maybe you're right. Maybe it's worthless." But then again, I let my fingers rest deliberately on the box. "You seem awfully interested for someone who thinks it's nothing." Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second before returning, brighter and colder. She set her glass down, leaned close, and whispered, "Careful. Curiosity has a way of getting people hurt in this family." Then she left, her laughter trailing behind her. I sat frozen for a long moment, the weight of her words sinking in. It wasn't just greed that drove them, it was fear. Fear that this little box might unravel everything they had clawed to possess, and maybe they were right. Because deep down, I was starting to believe it too. What do you think the carvings on the box really mean? The following morning, the estate buzzed with the restless energy of wolves circling prey. My relatives were already awake, voices carrying down the corridor as they argued over jewels, lands, and titles. I lingered at the edge of the dining hall, box in hand, listening as the greed in their voices swelled like a storm. "They'll be mine by next week," Uncle Charles declared, slamming his fist on the table. "I've already spoken with the lawyers." Evelyn twirled her pearls, her lips curving into a smirk. "You're assuming our dear cousin doesn't suddenly find herself indisposed." Her eyes flicked toward me in the doorway. The conversation faltered. Every gaze shifted to me. I straightened my shoulders and walked in, holding the box deliberately at my side. "You're very concerned with what doesn't belong to you," I said. The silence was thick, broken only by Aunt Margaret's sharp laugh. "Belongs to you? Don't be foolish. That's nothing but wood and dust. You're clinging to a fantasy because you were left out." I said nothing, but my grip on the box tightened. Their eyes followed it with a hunger they couldn't disguise, and in that moment, I understood something chilling. They didn't know what the box contained, but they believed it was important. Important enough to want me out of the way. That night, I locked my door and placed the box beneath the bed. Sleep was impossible. Every creak of the old house felt like a footstep. Every shadow stretched too long, reaching. At some point, I must have drifted off because I woke to the faint sound of metal scraping. My eyes snapped open. Someone was at my door. I held my breath as the knob jiggled softly, then stilled. After a long pause, footsteps retreated down the corridor. My heart pounded so hard it drowned out thought. I scrambled to check the box. It was still there, cool and steady under my hands. That was their warning. They were done laughing. By morning, the estate felt heavier, as though the very walls had absorbed the malice in the air. Evelyn sat at the breakfast table, sipping tea with a calm smile, but her eyes glittered with something sharper. "You look tired," she said sweetly. "Strange dreams, perhaps?" I forced a smile. "I sleep just fine." Her smile widened, but she said nothing more. Later in the study, I opened my grandmother's notebook again, clinging to it as though it were her hand guiding me through the storm. Near the back pages, I found a final line written in hurried strokes. "The one who holds the seed must guard it, for others will kill to see it bloom." The words chilled me. The carvings on the box, the vines, the seed-shaped emblem, they weren't just decoration. They were a warning. And now I knew this was no harmless inheritance. It was a key to something far greater. And the others would stop at nothing to take it. If someone tried to break into your room at night for the box, would you stay or run? The estate was no longer a home. It was a battlefield where silence carried threats and shadows whispered schemes. My relatives stopped mocking the box openly. Instead, their laughter grew quieter, edged with calculation. They were waiting, watching. On the third night, the waiting ended. I awoke to the faint creak of floorboards, my pulse leaping into my throat. The air smelled of candle wax and dust, thick in the darkness. Slowly, I reached for the box beneath my bed. Empty. Panic surged through me like ice water. A shadow moved near the dresser. I strained my eyes until I saw her, Evelyn, her pale silk gown almost glowing in the moonlight. In her hands, the box. She hadn't seen me yet. I rose silently, every muscle taut. "Put it back." Her head whipped around, eyes wide for a heartbeat before she smiled. "So light a sleeper," she whispered. "I was hoping you wouldn't notice." My fists clenched. "That doesn't belong to you." "Oh, darling," she purred, holding it close as if it were a newborn child. "It doesn't belong to you either." "Not really, don't you see? She meant for all of us to share in her fortune. This is the key, I know it." I stepped closer. "You don't even know what's inside." Her smile sharpened. "No, but I'm about to." She turned as if to flee, but I lunged, grabbing the box before she could bolt. For a moment, we were locked in a silent tug of war, her nails biting into my hands, her eyes wild with greed. "Let go," she hissed. "Over my dead body." Her face twisted with something feral, and she shoved me hard. I stumbled back, hitting the edge of the bed frame. The box slipped from both our hands, crashing to the floor with a hollow thud. We froze. Neither of us moved, both waiting for it to crack open. But it didn't. The carvings glinted faintly in the moonlight, still sealed, still defiant. A knock rattled the door. "What's going on in there?" Uncle Charles's voice, deep and suspicious. Evelyn shot me a look, a warning and a threat all at once, then whispered, "This isn't over." She slipped out through the side door, her silk hem vanishing into the corridor's shadows. I collapsed to my knees, clutching the box tight against my chest. My body trembled with the aftershock, but my mind burned with clarity. This wasn't a game anymore. They would come again, and next time they wouldn't hesitate to hurt me. I returned the box to the desk drawer and locked it with a small brass key I had found in my grandmother's study weeks before. Then I pushed a chair against the door and sat awake until dawn, notebook open in front of me. My grandmother's cryptic words echoed louder than ever. Guard it, for others will kill to see it bloom. And now I believed her, because Evelyn had already tried. Should she have fought Evelyn harder, or let her open the box to see the truth? Dawn painted the estate in pale gray light, the kind that makes everything feel fragile, uncertain. My eyes burned from lack of sleep, but I didn't care. The box sat before me on the desk, the vines on its surface seeming to shimmer faintly in the morning glow. I couldn't wait any longer. If Evelyn had almost taken it once, she would try again. And Uncle Charles? Well, his patience was measured only in what he could steal. I opened my grandmother's notebook again, tracing her words with trembling fingers. The roots hide deeper truths. The carvings, the vines. I ran my hand along the surface, pressing lightly at each swirl and knot. At first, nothing happened. Then, as I pressed near the emblem shaped like a seed, I felt it sink slightly, as if it were a button. My breath caught. Slowly, I pushed harder. A soft click echoed in the still room. The vines carved into the wood shifted almost imperceptibly, sliding against one another like gears. A panel on the side of the box loosened, revealing a narrow slit. I stared in awe. It wasn't just a box. It was a puzzle. Inside the slit, folded tightly, was a piece of parchment. My hands shook as I pulled it free and unrolled it. It was a letter. To my dearest, it began, in my grandmother's delicate handwriting. If you are reading this, then the time has come for truth. The wealth they fight over is but ashes compared to what I entrust to you. This box holds more than they could ever imagine, but only one with patience and loyalty will see it through. Do not reveal it too soon, for greed destroys before it saves. Wait until they have shown their true faces, and then let the gift bloom. I read the words again and again, my throat tight. She had trusted me, not them, with whatever this was. And the phrase, let the gift bloom, echoed the drawings of vines and seeds throughout her notebook. Bloom, like a plant, like growth. I turned the box in my hands, searching for more. Beneath the carvings near the base, I noticed tiny holes, as though something was meant to pass through. Soil, water, seeds. It was no trinket. It was something alive. Before I could explore further, the door burst open. Uncle Charles stormed in, Evelyn trailing behind him with that familiar smugness. What are you hiding? Charles barked, his eyes darting to the box. We heard noises. You've opened it, haven't you? I quickly folded the letter into my pocket, my pulse racing. It's locked, I lied smoothly. You can see for yourself. He stepped forward, reaching for it, but I pulled it back. Grandmother left this to me. You have no right. For a moment, I thought he would strike me. His face darkened and his fists clenched. But then Evelyn touched his arm lightly, her smile sharp as a knife. Patience, uncle, she murmured. The girl will slip. And when she does, we'll be ready. They left, but not before Charles gave me one last look. Hungry, dangerous. I exhaled shakily, clutching the box close. They knew I was close to unlocking it, and that made me more of a target than ever. Do you think the seeds are magical or symbolic? That night, I locked myself in the study again. The box sat under the lamplight, its carvings glowing like veins of fire. My grandmother's words echoed in my head. Wait until they have shown their true faces, and then let the gift bloom. I had seen their faces now. Greed, cruelty, envy. It oozed from every word they spoke, every glance they cast at me. Whatever this gift was, it wasn't meant for them. It was meant to stand against them. I carefully tilted the box, studying the tiny holes at its base. They weren't decorative. They were functional, like drainage holes in a planter. My pulse quickened. Could it really be that simple? I fetched a small pot of soil from the greenhouse, my grandmother's beloved roses still thriving there. Gently, I pressed a pinch into the hollow of the box. The carvings seemed to shift slightly, vines twisting as if alive. Then I poured a few drops of water into the slit. At first, nothing, just silence. Then, a faint glow pulsed from within the carvings. My breath caught as the emblem of the seed shimmered softly like an ember in the dark. The box vibrated, low and steady, as though it had been waiting years for this moment. The top slid open with a quiet hiss, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a small pouch of seeds, ordinary at first glance, smooth, dark, and unremarkable. But when I touched them, a warmth spread through my fingers and I swore I saw faint light dance beneath their surface. My grandmother's notebook had mentioned a seed, yes, but these were no ordinary seeds. I pulled out another folded paper from beneath the pouch, her handwriting again, urgent and flowing. These are not riches, but they are power. Planted in truth, they will grow into what was stolen. Guard them well. In them lies justice and our family's salvation. I pressed a hand over my mouth, trembling. Seeds that could restore what was lost. Seeds that could destroy lies. It sounded impossible. Yet the box had already proven to be more than wood and carvings. My thoughts spiraled with questions, but before I could read further, a sharp knock rattled the study door. Open up, Uncle Charles's voice thundered. Now! My heart raced. They must have heard the hum, the shifting wood, something. I shoved the pouch of seeds and the letter into my pocket, snapping the box closed just as the lock on the door jiggled. Go away, I shouted, forcing steadiness into my voice. I'm busy. Busy with what? Evelyn chimed, her tone dripping with false innocence. Why not let us help? I braced my back against the desk, clutching the seeds like a lifeline. They pounded once more, then silence. I didn't trust it, not for a second. The box might have given me its secret, but now my family knew I was hiding something real, and they wouldn't stop until they took it, no matter what it cost. Would you risk planting one of the seeds or wait? For 2 days, the house grew quieter, too quiet. My relatives no longer pounded at my door or sneered openly when I passed them in the halls. Instead, they watched. Smiles stretched too wide, conversations hushed when I entered a room. It was worse than their jeers. This silence was strategy. At breakfast, Evelyn slid into the chair beside me, her perfume sickly sweet. You've been awfully secretive, cousin, she purred, pouring me tea. Surely you don't mean to keep us locked out forever. We're family. Her words dripped with syrup, but her eyes were sharp. Uncle Charles grunted from across the table. Family shares. That was your grandmother's lesson, wasn't it? His fork stabbed into his steak with unnecessary force. I forced a small smile, though every muscle inside me screamed to run. Of course. When there's something worth sharing, Evelyn tilted her head. Then you won't mind joining us this evening. We've planned a little gathering in the drawing room. A toast to our new beginnings. Her tone was light, but I caught the steel beneath it. This wasn't an invitation. It was a summons. That evening, I dressed plainly, tucking the pouch of seeds into the hidden pocket of my dress. The box I locked away in my grandmother's study, praying it would stay hidden. The drawing room was filled with the scent of wine and cigar smoke. My aunts and uncles lined the couches, their jeweled hands clasping glasses. Evelyn stood in the center like a queen, her smile radiant. Ah, there she is, she said brightly as I entered. Come, sit. I hesitated, but Charles gestured sharply to a chair opposite him. Reluctantly, I obeyed. Evelyn raised her glass. To family, she declared, bound by blood, strengthened by legacy. The others echoed her words, sipping from their glasses. My throat was dry. Then Evelyn leaned forward, her smile vanishing. Now, where is it? Silence? Every eye locked onto me, I feigned confusion. Where is what? Charles slammed his fist against the table, rattling the glasses. Don't play dumb. We heard the noises. We saw the light. The boxes opened. My heart raced, but I steadied my voice. You imagine things. It's still locked. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. If that's true, then you won't mind showing us. Two of my uncles rose, flanking the door. My aunts leaned forward, eyes glittering with hunger. I was cornered. I forced a calm laugh. You're mad. All of you. Fighting over a piece of wood, Evelyn leaned closer, her whisper sharp as a blade. Then prove it. Show us the box. Now I clenched my fists around the hidden pouch in my pocket. They didn't know about the seeds, not yet. But if I led them to the study, they'd tear the place apart until they found them. I had to think fast, because I was no longer just their cousin, I was prey. How would you escape if your entire family cornered you? The following morning, I knew I couldn't stay silent any longer. My family would never stop. They would claw, bite, and tear until either the box or I was theirs. The only way to win was to end the game entirely. The perfect stage presented itself sooner than expected. That day, representatives from the estate's auction house arrived to begin cataloging my grandmother's belongings. My relatives gathered in the grand hall, faces glowing with greed as they discussed which jewels would fetch the highest price. Evelyn, of course, was at the center. She had dressed herself like royalty, her emerald gown sweeping the marble floor, pearls gleaming around her throat. She greeted the auctioneer with honeyed words and false modesty, while the rest of the family preened like peacocks beside her. I stood quietly at the edge, the pouch of seeds hidden inside my sleeve. My grandmother's box rested in my hands, warm against my skin, pulsing faintly as if alive. The auctioneer cleared his throat. Shall we begin the inventory? Yes, Evelyn said smoothly, gesturing toward the display tables. But first, she turned to me, her voice carrying. Our dear cousin has been keeping a curiosity, a box, one of our late grandmother entrusted to her. Surely, if it is of value, it belongs with the rest. Dozens of eyes fixed on me, some expectant, some mocking, some sharp with suspicion. I stepped forward slowly. My voice trembled at first, but grew stronger with every word. This isn't just a box. It's the last gift she left, and it's not meant for the greedy. It's meant for the worthy. Evelyn laughed, sharp and bright. Worthy? Don't be ridiculous. You think you deserve more than the rest of us? Uncle Charles sneered. Open it, girl. Let everyone see the trinket you've been clutching like treasure. I took a steadying breath. Then with deliberate calm, I pressed the seed emblem. The soft click echoed through the hall. Gasps rippled as the carving shifted, vines glowing faintly like veins of fire. The box unfolded with elegance, revealing the pouch of seeds and my grandmother's handwritten note. I lifted the letter high and began to read. To my family, you squabble over golden jewels, but true wealth lies not in glittering stones. I leave behind seeds of justice, born from soil, nurtured by truth. Plant them with honesty, and they will restore what greed has stolen. But plant them with malice, and they will destroy the one who holds them. The hall fell silent. Evelyn's face drained of color. Charles muttered something under his breath, his fists clenching. I looked around at them, my so-called family, their fortunes clutched in trembling hands. This is her legacy. Not your stolen jewels, not your schemes. These seeds will decide who among us deserves to carry her name. For the first time, I saw fear flicker in their eyes, and it was beautiful. Do you believe her grandmother planned this moment from the very beginning? The silence in the grand hall was suffocating. The glowing vines on the box flickered faintly like embers, casting restless shadows on the marble floor. My grandmother's words, plant them with honesty, and they will restore. Plant them with malice, and they will destroy, hung in the air like a curse. Evelyn was the first to break. Nonsense, she spat, snatching the pouch of seeds from my hand. They're worthless. Just another of her tricks to keep us groveling. Before I could stop her, she poured a few seeds into her palm, laughing bitterly. See? Useless, she tossed them onto the floor as if they were nothing. But the moment they touched the marble, the seeds began to pulse with light. The glow spread across the cracks in the stone like veins of gold, spiderwebbing beneath Evelyn's shoes. She stumbled back, her laughter dying in her throat as thin green shoots burst upward, wrapping around her ankles. What is this? She shrieked, clawing at the vines. The rest of the family gasped and staggered back, but Uncle Charles's greed overcame his fear. He lunged forward, snatching another handful of seeds. Power! He roared. She left us power. But when he clutched them, the glow seared his hands. He screamed, dropping them, and the vines surged up his arms like fire-made flesh. His jewels clattered to the ground as he fell, writhing. The room erupted in chaos. My aunts pressed themselves against the walls, shrieking prayers, while the auctioneer fled through the doors. Evelyn fought against the vines, strangling her legs, but the more she resisted, the tighter they held. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the vines withered, retreating back into the glowing cracks. Evelyn collapsed to the floor, trembling and pale. Charles lay groaning, his hands blistered where he had grasped the seeds. The hall fell silent again, the only sound my own steady breath. I bent and picked up the pouch, holding it close. The seeds were warm, but calm now, as if recognizing the difference between greed and care. My grandmother's letter trembled in my hand. Plant them with honesty, they will restore what greed has stolen. I looked at the faces around me, pale, sweating, frightened. For once there was no laughter, no jeering, only fear. I straightened my shoulders, voice steady. This is why she gave them to me. Because she knew the rest of you would destroy yourselves with greed. And she was right. No one dared argue. Later, when the hall emptied and the night grew quiet, I carried the seeds into the garden my grandmother had loved. I dug a patch of soil beneath her favorite rosebush and pressed one seed into the earth. Within moments, a tender green shoot emerged, curling toward the moonlight. It glowed faintly, casting a soft halo across the flowers. I smiled through tears. It wasn't jewels or titles she had left me, it was something greater. Her last gift wasn't wealth, it was justice. And it had bloomed at last. If you could choose, would you rather inherit money, property, or something mysterious like these seeds?